is Visions PS LLC. It's been known by most folks as Visions Productivity Solutions. I'm a leadership and team productivity coach. I started out my business after about a 10-year career in marketing and advertising. And at that time, I was focused more on the productivity and organizing industry and work. So I did a lot of workflow, systems, file and information management with my clients. And it kept morphing from, working on the physical aspects of how they worked to the psychological aspects. And so that pulled me back to my undergrad days as a psychology major. And overall, over the time, also brought in my master work in communications. And so I love it now, where I am now and what I do. I'm able to pull all of that together. I do a lot of psychographic work with my clients. I use different assessments and tools as a coach, really helping them understand how to shift their mindset, how to grow and develop into their leadership, and how to become more effective communicators. And so I'm able to use the totality of my background along with the business strategy from the marketing side and help clients build thriving, successful businesses without burning themselves out. A sense of humor and perseverance and passion, right? You have to really love what you're doing. When they tell you to find something that you love, and then it won't feel like work, that's really true. But it's also important because there's always going to be a time where there's a thing you don't like about your business, right? There's going to be something that tests you or takes you out of your comfort zone or your wheelhouse. And if you're frustrated in that moment, if you're not in love with the idea of your business, it's going to be really hard to push through that. And so you also need that perseverance. You need to be consistent and you need to be able to overcome setbacks because that's part of the game. Being an entrepreneur is like being on a roller coaster. And if you're not a fan of roller coasters, buckle up. There's some incredibly wild moments, absolutely fun moments. For me, when my clients have those ahas and I see their success stories and they reach back out to me and say, oh my gosh, I just did that thing we coached through, that just lights me up and gets me excited. And so that joy helps me cover through the days when I have to do the parts of business that I don't necessarily find as enjoyable. So you need to be able to laugh your way through it, not take yourself so seriously sometimes, and make sure that you can keep getting back up. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up, how many times you rise. Absolutely vital. I am a lifelong learner. You can see my bookcase and some of those shelves are groaning, and that's just the books that are physical, right? I'm always learning and growing and developing, but it comes from my clients' needs. If there's something that I want to be able to serve them in, there are things that are not in my wheelhouse or not in my passion that I'm just like, oh, that's not something I can do. But if it's aligned or it's close enough and I'm intrigued, I often find myself like, let me learn more about that. Let me learn more about that. So that's led me to have several certifications. So, I have my master's in communications. I have minor in business. I have my psychology degree and sociology background from a formal education standpoint. But as a coach, we are required to have continuing educations. And so just to become a PCC, ICF, International Coaching Federation, all of the acronyms, International Coaching Federation, Professional Certified Coaching credential that I have requires about 120 hours of coach training plus 500 plus hours of actual practice, right? But once you achieve that credential, you're required to maintain continuing education credits. And so that's really important. You can't get stagnant and rest on your laurels, but it's not just maintaining that credential. For me, it's also going deeper into a skill set. So I serve my clients as a leadership coach. I want to really understand things like the neuroscience of leadership. And that's another certification. I use a lot of mental fitness and resilience work, and so I have certifications in that as well. And then I also have to learn how to be a better business owner. And you have to, go do those things. Take a bookkeeping class, even though you're not going to be a bookkeeper. Go take some social media classes so you can learn different strategies. So the thing for me goes about not just being a learner because I love learning, it's also the application. And there's a quote, and I'm going to attribute it to Darren Hardy because I think he's the one who said, and I'm paraphrasing, don't be smart but broke, right? So for me in my business, as I've learned something, one of the guiding principles that I have is not just to learn it because I love learning, but how can I apply it and utilize it with my clients? And so typically, if I'm taking a certification, I have to think about how do I monetize it in a way that it's a level up? And every single time I've done a certification or I've earned another credential, it's allowed me to serve my clients in a deeper way. And so that does lead to greater revenues. I can expand my offerings. I can go deeper into certain areas. I can talk to different client groups now. There was a time I didn't do work with teams. Now I work with teams all the time. That came out of a certification that I did. So continuing education is really important. As an entrepreneur, you can't stop learning. There's always constant change. You have to be ready to pivot, and you have to make sure that you have your knowledge base. It doesn't have to come just from going and getting the formal education, but there are going to be times that you need that certification where it's going to be helpful, especially depending on the types of clients that you serve. I have worked with federal government clients, for example, and they've required certain certifications in order to bid on projects. And so you cannot stop learning. So in coaching, it's definitely had a huge impact. Many years ago, when I had first worked with coaches, it was good old-fashioned telephone, like you were on a phone call. And coaching has definitely transitioned in a lot of ways through the use of technology. Obviously, we use virtual tools like webinars, whether it's Zoom or something else, right? And so that allows us to bring more of the physicality of our clients into coaching. And so we can see the body language, not just guess from the tone, which was one huge shift for me. But also you're seeing technology come in a lot of ways. Now, AI is something that plays a role as a business owner. I utilize it to kind of extend out the work. Right? Do research for me, help me build better presentations if I'm training, help me, create content or write, materials. So that's one way that AI comes in. But in the coaching industry, you are seeing AI now taking on asynchronous coaching. There are actual products that can be used where coaches are guiding the product or using AI tools, almost like how we're used to chatbots and customer service tools. Similarly, there's also AI coaching models where organizations are deploying AI coaching. And you can think of a couple of it, and they'll, tell you there's certain boundaries and guidelines. But if you've used them, you'll notice that they're not necessarily that bad, right? Well, it's not necessarily the perfect answer, but for someone who has, entry-level needs, it can help them. And so I've seen coaches react to that differently. Personally, for me, it's the same as competition, right? And I don't look at it as competition, as collaboration. There's a fit for everyone. Not everyone is going to be comfortable with a chatbot for their coach, but others are going to see that it can make the value and the use and tools of coaching more accessible to them. But it's definitely starting to have an impact on the industry. It's an interesting question. I haven't necessarily gone down the rabbit hole with it, but more and more, I think it brings into certain conversations around ethics in coaching, for example, how it's used, how it's utilized as a tool. There's a different consideration. I think for some folks, it can help them, right? Where you have less conflicts of interest, because AI is not going to have I want to sell you this other service, aspect of it. But I think there's something to be said about removing the human element. Right? And say what you want to say. I don't ever believe that AI is ever going to fully replace that, especially if there needs to be that experiential, that emotional connect, that just understanding of the human emotion. So I think, will it create a niche in coaching for those folks who maybe want to have access to it, but it's not as affordable being able to onboard with a coach, or they want to have that asynchronous work? I think, it'll do that. But I struggle to see where it will fully replace coaches. I do see an opportunity, and I can see organizations bringing it in-house. So utilizing it as a mindfulness tool, for example, for their employees to be able to make coaching, and I use that in quotations, more accessible, for example, to more junior employees, whereas most organizations now are only making coaching available to those in the leadership pipeline. So I think that there will be some impact, but will it get rid of coaches? No, because there's also those folks that are just never going to be comfortable with it. You have to be aware of it, though, as a coach, and think about how might this, impact if I have someone that's doing a comparator between me and the AI tool. How am I going to sell myself as a point of difference? And that's why you still have to be able to do your work and your marketing. Some of the things, and if I recall, because I'm coming up on 20 years as a business owner myself right now. So I remember in my early days, I tried to recreate a lot of the structures that I had in place when I was incorporated. So structure is important, but don't go too far with it. Don't go overboard. and builds a structure that creates more overhead than's necessary. But have some business policies. I can't tell you how many times I've had to engage in conversations and I can say to the client, the policy is, and it's laid out and I can share it with them and I'm done. And it takes the emotion out of having difficult conversations because I can't send you to another department when it's about your billing or hand you off to someone else for a conversation that I don't want to have as a business owner. You're going to have all of those conversations. So stop and think about how do you create structure around the different areas of your business. Absolutely, your financials. You have to have good, sound financial practice. Take a bookkeeping class. Make sure you understand the basics of maintaining your books. Create your investment account, your savings account, your checking account. What's your payroll going to be like? Do that work, right? Understand good financial practices and how to put that in place. Create structures around your marketing, what types of clients you want to have clarity on who you want to serve and how you want to serve them. So you're not chasing every possible person that comes to you. You're going to attract the right person to you. Think about how you're going to divide your time, right? Because our time is our biggest resource and we are our biggest resource. And so it's constant juggling act between working on your business, the business development, finding clients, doing the admin stuff, the boring stuff that no one likes. So working on the business, working in the business, delivering your service to your clients, and working on you as the leader, as the business owner. What do you need to stay fulfilled? Make sure your health is okay, that you're learning, that you're continuing to challenge yourself and you're growing. So think about those three buckets: working on, working in your business, and working on yourself. How do you navigate those? And make sure that they're equally prioritized throughout the course of the year, right? I might be heavy. For me, I have really busy windows. So the first quarter, lots of classes, clients, and I'm running. But then as you move into the summer months, no one wants to do training. That's when I do my development. I'll take a course. I will do content development. I'll do my own strategic planning so that I'm working on the business and I'm developing myself and that I'm ready when things pick back up again in the fall. So understanding the cycle of my business allows me to make sure that I'm giving equal weight to those things and areas. It's a leap of faith. And so I had been working in a very time-intensive, energy-intensive industry. If you've ever seen any of the shows about what advertising and marketing agencies are like, multiply them out, right? And that was before we had a lot of tech tools to make it easier. So I was really burning out, as most high-achieving leaders are going to understand, we push ourselves, we set really high standards and we work really hard in those standards. And so I was young in my marriage, but burning out in my career after about 10-something years in. And it was taking a toll on me and thinking about what was the quality of life that I had and I wanted. And so that was really kind of my impetus. I say that I was fortunate that I was actually part of a reduction in workforce because one, it pushed me out of the nest. I'd had this idea germinating in the back of my head and afraid to take that leap of faith. And it created the scenario where I was like, all right, what am I going to lose right now? I can go for it and put my energy into it and really try to make this thing work. And that's what happened. But the transition piece was also thinking about, I see sometimes folks when they're transitioning assume that it's like a door closed and then a different one opening. And I want you to think of it as like one of those swinging doors. Don't be afraid to look at skill sets and knowledge base that you brought forward from this career that's a part of you still. How can you pull that into what you're doing now? What aspects of it can you do? Often there are transferable skills you can use and leverage in your new endeavor. But we assume that no, I'm not doing marketing anymore. I don't need that. Or I'm not doing fill in the blank anymore. I don't need that. I'm willing to bet that there's something that you can pull forward. And so when I started my business and I went into productivity and organizing, it was based on the efficiency work that I was doing was not a part of my job title, but I had built a reputation at organizations I was working with for creating workflows and systems and processes for how we supported and served our clients. And so that was the nugget that went into my head, and I said, can I do a business with this? Can I make this something that can actually, be that thing? And that's what inspired me, because I looked at what skill sets did I have? What did I enjoy doing? What was I always volunteering to do even though I wasn't getting paid for it? And how can I transition that and take that into a business? So don't be afraid to bring some of those elements forward with you as you start this new thing.